So today here at Sir Project Nigel Land, there is a double treat because I have another car to review. Now feast your eyes on this 1994 Austin Maestro in almost new condition. It's really quite amazing what an original car this is, and what a futuristic car it looked when it was actually new. But of course in 1994 it wasn't really a very new car at all, because I think it was 1984 when it first came out. That's when it did look new. 10 years later, not so much. It's the very last of this particular car. And just how wonderful it is that such a very late car has been kept in such pristine condition. Look at those sills. I can spot a couple of bubbles here and there, but not really very much, to be honest. It has clearly been meticulously cleaned and kept that way. Kept in a garage, I presume, most of the time. Not just any garage, it needs to be a dry garage, otherwise it can make things even worse. And these Maestros were very well known, as the Montegos as well, for corrosion. Corrosion on the arches and corrosion on the wings. Most cars were at that time, to be absolutely honest, so let's not beat it up over such a thing. Inside, the new owner has clearly taken the precaution of not dirtying the seats. Either that or he just likes a bath towel with him everywhere he goes. It really is amazingly clean in here. A proper throwback to the 1980s. I feel like an irresponsible young person again suddenly. Oh look, the headlining's not sagging either. Wow, how's that happened? How's he managed? How's somebody managed not to have a saggy headlining? The door fits properly, that's good. Now if you look down here, next to the windy window, we have something called a choke. That's not something, it looks a bit more like a lighter or a 12 volt charging point, but it's not. It's just to add more fuel to the engine when it's cold. Time to start it up, I think, see what the engine sounds like. Well, can you hear that? Only if I blip the throttle. That is a very, very quiet little engine. It's very clear dials, no rev counter, just the fuel and temperature gauge and a speedometer, which of course is mildly optimistic. And then the switches here. Nice little, yeah, nice. Switches all feel very nice actually. Trim's a bit loose there, and the clock works, which is always a bonus. Down here we have a nice original Rover radio. It's always nice to see an original radio. Then the vents are quite, they don't feel like particularly good quality, but I don't think anything did at that time. How about this? Does that work? Yes, it does. Those actually feel quite nice. Most definitely feel much nicer than that Citroen I had the other day. And down in this corner here we have the all-important glove box, which I shall open, and we can see slots for tapes and maps, and it's quite a deep glove box actually. And of course the tape selection is quite fitting with the actual car as well. That's a lovely little shelf there, very, very practical to put your cup of coffee on. Now that I've got the bonnet open, take a look at this. What an unbelievably clean engine bay. That's fantastic. And loads of room for working on as well. Not that these particular engines were overly prone to problems. That's what I like to see, proper simple mechanics. If anything breaks in here, you can actually find it and work on it. Take things off, put them back on without having to take the engine out. And that is, well, that's the kind of thing I like. The back end of these always reminds me of the AMC Pacer. One thing I particularly like about this car is the amount of glass that it has, meaning that your rear visibility is very, very good indeed. So if anyone runs into the back of you, you can actually see it happening before it happens, which in some ways is a good thing. Wheel trims look original, 155/80/13 tyres. Not going to be the best for road holding, but probably quite comfortable. We'll find out that in a minute. I think it's time to take this lovely little car for a test drive. Now you see my face when I'm driving Nigel, that kind of just really happy face. I'm doing it now. I've got the same face on, I can tell. I can feel my face just being wide, and that's because of driving this car. I would love to I would love to have a longer drive in this thing. It's just, it just feels so unbelievably old, and like in a good way though, not in a bad way. Anyway, let's talk about how it drives. I'm just getting too excited here. Now the ride is actually very, very smooth. It does kind of float along. That's what I was expecting. The tyres are nice and big and soft, so there's no hard jolty suspension anywhere, which is to me always a treat. Shouldn't be a treat, but it is. The steering's not massively responsive. It's not got a kind of tight rack on it like you would with a modern car, but it does the job, and it does appear to be properly attached as well. The interior is a little bit on the rattly side, but I think we can forgive it for that. It actually pulls quite nicely. As soon as you get to a roundabout though, you can feel the thing doesn't really want to grip particularly hard, but it won't do with those tyres on, because they're just simply not made for flinging round corners. At the moment I saw this car, I thought, I bet this drives as well as it looks, and you know it does. There's no clonks. There's a bit rattly on the trim. It just sounds like the parcel shelf or something. But the whole suspension, no knocks, no clonks or anything. That's how a car should be. And I bet if you did start flinging this around the corners a bit, it kind of hangs on better than you'd expect it to do. And there we go. I just got a nod off of someone coming the other way. I knew that was going to happen. So it's like being in Nigel, and that's not entirely surprising because, you know, effectively the Rover 25 and the Rover 200s are related to this car, albeit of course under a different name of Austin rather than Rover, but it's all the same great big company. Has a great big mishmash of British engineering, something we like a lot. One of the reasons I'll be getting people looking at this car so much is actually down to its condition, as much as the fact that it's a very rare car now. Not having fuel injection does make the engine have a kind of different kind of throttle response. It's not got quite the same instant go as you'd have with a modern, or well I say modern, you know, one that came out just a few years later, like the K series. Now there's a point. Maestro with the K series, that'd be a cracking good thing. I mean, they did a Maestro with the M series, the MG Maestro. I've never driven one of those, but I did drive I used to have an MG Montego, which was a right good laugh at the time. And of course that same block was then used on the 200s and 400s with a twin cam top on there to make it a bit of a flying machine. I love this car. I think it's fantastic. I would love to own this car. It just feels, it's one of those cars that make you happy to drive. I wonder if it's just me that gets this kind of happy feeling though. It's worthwhile mentioning that this car won't have ABS. It doesn't have power steering, but in all honesty, you don't really need it when you've got skinny wheels like it's got, and quite a big steering wheel. Even when you're stopped, you can manage it easily. This A series engine's got a real charm about the sound. As I said, it actually pulls quite well. It's not quick, it's not going to tear your face off in acceleration, but it does the job. I imagine. Having a test drive in this Maestro was something I knew I was going to enjoy, but I actually enjoyed it much more than I could have imagined. Not just because of its stunning condition and it driving like a new car, but just the whole experience of driving this was just fantastic. The whole British car industry has been considered a joke for decades, but looking at this Maestro here, it's really unfair. They had some brilliant ideas, they were properly forward thinking. It's just the joke went too far and it kind of stuck. The Maestro is actually a much better car than its reputation suggests. Thank you for watching and subscribe to my channel right now, please. Go.